So how do you take an entire nation and, in just a couple of decades, bring power to almost everyone? We're going to dive into Cambodia's amazing journey from energy scarcity to near universal access. But the story's not over. It's actually entering a really fascinating new phase, one that's all about harnessing the power of the sun, one rooftop at a time.
Okay, let's just start with this one number because it really tells you everything. By 2025, it's estimated that 99.09% of all villages in Cambodia will have electricity. I mean, just let that sink in. For any country, that is a massive achievement, especially one that's faced so many challenges. It's a story of unbelievable speed and scale. And if you want to see what that scale looks like, well, this chart says it all. Back in 2011, Cambodia was delivering just under 2,800 gigawatt-hours of energy. Fast forward to 2025, and that number is expected to just skyrocket to over 22,000. That's an eightfold increase in just 15 years. This isn't just growth, it's a flat-out energy explosion. So, the big question is, how on earth did this happen? A boom like this is a huge puzzle. Logistically, financially, you name it. It definitely doesn't happen by accident. You need a rock-solid plan and a really steady hand to guide it. And that really gets us to the heart of the matter. When you're growing that fast, how do you keep everything from flying off the rails? How do you make sure prices are fair? And, most importantly, how do you make sure the lights actually stay on? Basically, how do you pull off this kind of explosive growth without total chaos?
Well, the answer comes down to having clear rules of the game. To handle this massive expansion, Cambodia set up a really strong regulatory system for its power sector. This gave everyone, from the investors putting up the money to the people flipping on the light switch, a sense of stability and confidence.
And right at the center of it all is this organization, the Electricity Authority of Cambodia, or the EAC. You can pretty much think of them as the architects and the air traffic controllers for the entire power grid. So what do they actually do? Well, as an independent regulator, they're the ones who give licenses to all the power companies. But crucially, they also set the prices, the tariffs, that everybody pays. And they act as the ultimate watchdog, making sure the whole system is stable, reliable, and fair for everyone. And they didn't just make these rules up on the fly. They were all based on some really clear principles laid out way back in 2007. The goals were pretty straightforward but powerful. Be fair to the people using the power. Make sure prices make sense, allow the energy providers to stay in business, and, this is a big one, do it all out in the open. That transparency built a ton of trust in the system.
Okay, so we've talked about the rules, but what does this all look like in the real world? Let's take a look at the grid itself and what all these regulations actually mean for what people and businesses pay for their electricity.
First up, where's all this power coming from? Well, the grid really relies on two heavy hitters. Hydropower is the massive backbone at 62%, and coal follows at 28%. But if you look closely, you can see a change is coming. Solar is already at 3%, and believe me, that slice of the pie is getting bigger fast.
And this map shows where all that energy goes. This is the national grid. It's like the country's nervous system, a web of power lines connecting 75 substations across all 25 provinces. It is a truly national system designed to get power from where it's made to wherever it's needed. So what's the bottom line for people's wallets? Well, the ESC's pricing is really specific. For a typical family in the capital, it's about 12 US cents per kilowatt hour. A big factory pays a little more, around 13.7 cents. And check this out. There's a really smart incentive for farmers. If they run their water pumps at night, they get a discount, which also helps keep the demand on the grid nice and balanced. But the story doesn't stop there, with just a big, centralized grid. No. The next chapter is already being written, and it's a huge shift. It's about welcoming power that's generated by people themselves, right on their very own rooftops. And this is a really big deal. In 2024, the EAC saw that solar costs were dropping all over the world and decided to get ahead of the curve. They brought in new regulations with a clear goal. Let's bring all this new decentralized solar power into the national grid, but let's do it in a way that's fair for everyone and keeps the system stable.
So if you're a home or business owner, how do you do it? Well, they've laid it out in 4 pretty clear steps. First, you check the official requirements. Then you get all your info together. Third, you've got to work with a licensed solar installer. That's key. And finally, they help you send the application off to the EAC. It's all designed to be pretty structured and straightforward.
This is the million-dollar question, right? For anyone with solar anywhere, what happens at night or when it's super cloudy? You still need power. And the answer is yes, absolutely. You can still rely on the national grid to be your backup. But that reliability comes with a specific mechanism.
And that mechanism is called a compensation tariff. The easiest way to think about it is like a service fee. You're paying to have the entire national grid on standby 24/7, ready to jump in the second your panels aren't producing. It's all about making sure the costs of keeping that grid stable are shared fairly by everyone who counts on it.
And here's how they've structured that fee. To really encourage people to get on board, small home systems get a free pass, zero compensation fee. That's huge. For a medium-sized system, say on a small business, it's about 3.7 cents per kilowatt hour you generate. And for the really big industrial systems, it goes up to about 6 cents. The logic is simple. The bigger your setup, the more you might need the grid as a backup, and the fee reflects that.
So all of this brings us to the big picture. Cambodia is in this really interesting spot right now. It's performing this delicate balancing act between the huge centralized system that brought power to the country and a brand new, green, decentralized future. And honestly, these two images right here just capture that balancing act perfectly. On one side, you have the massive hydropower dams that built the grid, the foundation. And on the other, you have the new rules for rooftop solar that let individuals be part of the solution. It's literally the past and the future of energy, sitting right next to each other.
And that leaves us with this final, massive question. And it's not just for Cambodia, it's for every country. As technology keeps changing, how do we manage this transition? How do you balance the sheer power and reliability of a big, centralized grid with the amazing promise and flexibility of clean, decentralized energy? Cambodia's story is a really powerful case study in how to start answering one of the biggest challenges of our time.